Inverted Man here.
A long time ago, this happened.
The cosmological debate, the Kalam, the fine-tuning, the moral argument, and Jesus resurrected, and how did all the disciples believe that, blah, 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 blah.
If that's how you feel about some of the best arguments for God's existence...
And now, without further ado, the best arguments for God's existence!
The cosmological debate, the Kalam, as it's called, is as follows. Premise 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2. The universe began to exist. Conclusion. The universe has a cause. Whenever you use a superlative in logic, whether the superlative be always, never, everything, nowhere, or other words like that, it has to be something that is quantifiably, absolutely true. It has to be something that can be shown to be true. The classic argument, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, wouldn't work unless we could know that that first premise was true. And we have overwhelming evidence that all men are indeed mortal. And we have no counterexample to that. Unless Christianity is true, and then we have at least one man that kind of wasn't mortal, but is, but maybe he's not a man, so is this an exception to the rule? I don't know. So that causes problems for logic, so we're just going to do what the best of science does and ignore that bit and go with the overwhelming data that says, yes, all men are mortal. But we have proof of that. We don't have proof of whatever is supposed to mean in this context. I suppose it's supposed to be everything, but however you want to put it, we don't know about a whatever. We don't know about everything. And many times this has been used by the apologists against skeptics and atheists. Well, you don't know everything, so see, that means you can't say there's no God, which is a complete and total breakdown of how logic works and how proving a universal negative works and all that, but it's convenient for them to do that because it shifts the burden of proof, which is a logical fallacy, but they don't seem to care. So, the rule of logic here, that's not even an informal fallacy, it is a formal fallacy. You're breaking the rules of the game itself by saying everything that begins to exist or whatever begins to exist, because you don't have the proof that that's true. I'd like to continue, but first I have to ask the question, what is the universe anyways, and what do we know about it? I'm no professor, but I found one that's totally a professor on the internet, because his name says that he's a professor. Who am I to argue with what he puts up on YouTube as his name? Professor, explain the universe for us, will you?
The universe is basically everything that we know and includes all the matter and energy that we recognize today. However, we surprisingly know little about it. For example, the size of the universe isn't even known. Because of the speed limit in which light travels, we are physically unable to observe anything that is beyond the observable universe. For all we know, the universe may as well be infinite. Is there anything beyond the universe? Well, we cannot answer that question. Although the universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? Empty space? Not necessarily, and maybe we'll never know.
Thanks, Professor Stick. Back to my analysis. Premise 2 contains special pleading. Universe coming into existence is not the same as anything else. Something that exists changes into something else. This is the law of thermodynamics. Nothing is created, nothing is destroyed. So the universe either created for something that exists, or that ruins exile and neo, or it comes from nothing at all, which would be okay because the laws of thermodynamics don't yet exist until there's a universe, or it's being made from nothing by God, and in any of those cases, none of those possibilities, and there's more than that, would fit into the same sort of way that we're talking about all the other objects that we know about. So, a lobster doesn't just begin to exist out of nothingness or God's will or anything like that, but is a chain of events that leads up to that. It came from something else into that thing. So it didn't come from nothing. So premise 2, that the universe began to exist, well, not in the same way, even if we assume that the universe did begin to exist. Wait, did the universe begin to exist? Hey, Professor, what's science have to say about that?
According to science, the beginning of the universe was obviously an alarming increase in space, the Big Bang. But of course, the Big Bang is still happening. Space is still expanding. We can observe that with the redshift of galaxies. So what do we know about the observable universe when it was in a tiny space so hot that time didn't even make sense? There are different ideas presented by different physicists. One of the more common ones explains how the universe came about, not necessarily from nothing, but rather it just came to be. This is explained by quantum tunneling, which states the phenomenon that tiny particles appear randomly. Since at the time the universe was compressed to an insanely small size, it could simply appear via quantum tunneling. Another idea involves the universe always being present, meaning that there wasn't necessarily a beginning. The Big Bang is simply an expansion of space, meaning before the Big Bang the universe was compressed. This is called the Big Crunch, which, by the way, is one of the proposed fates of our universe. After compression, the temperature gets so hot that everything begins to expand outwards, hence the Big Bang. This idea suggests that our universe may have gone through multiple instances of crunches and bangs, and we just happen to live in a moment of bang. However, what bothers me about this hypothesis is the second law of thermodynamics, which states that everything increases in entropy over time. A big crunch would involve a decrease in entropy. This is explained, however, by the concept of time. See, every law we have in physics isn't time dependent, or in other words, it would work the same if we moved forwards or backwards in time, but only the second law of thermodynamics requires time to flow forwards. When the Big Bang was in a state of compression, time didn't make sense. Our laws of physics break down. This gives room for a huge variety of possibilities, such as the compression state of the universe leading to two different pathways in time. What we see as compression before the Big Bang is objectively backwards in time according to the universe. That would explain the entropy problem. To be honest, I'm not an expert on this, so if anyone could elaborate a bit more in the comment section, that would be appreciated. Now, these are just a few hypotheses that we have currently. There's no solid evidence of anything so far, so until we figure more out, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
And I'm going to pretend like I know exactly what you're talking about. So, premise 2 contains another special pleading fallacy. Cause and effect doesn't apply to the origin of the universe because physics is different in the early stages of the universe. So cause and effect might not be the same. Thus, it doesn't follow the same deductive reasoning as premise 1 does. Right? Right, Professor? Cause works like that. Just say yes. Oh, forget it. Let's have him explain cause. I'm sure that won't take that long or make me confused.
This would entirely depend on the definition of cause. If we're going to go by the creationist definition of cause, as in a purpose, then no, there doesn't seem to be an objective cause. But if you say that something natural was a factor for the expansion of space, then yes, probably. For example, when the universe was compressed to a tiny space, the amount of heat and energy within that singularity is bound to cause an expansion. But if you're going to say that the universe had a purpose, then I would completely disagree with you.
Exactly. So it is 2 special pleadings. Because, what we just said. There's another logical fallacy in the second premise. I know, amazing. Another logical fallacy. And that's special knowledge because it will require special knowledge to know that the universe began to exist. Especially in the way that they're suggesting it. Which all hinges upon the definition of beginning and began and to exist and all of these words. I can't explain it. Maybe Stick can. Hey, Sticky, explain this stuff.
Definitions matter here again. If we define begin to exist as in it came out of absolutely nothing, then I wouldn't say that things begin to exist. But if the definition doesn't include other materials, then yeah, things can definitely begin to exist.
There's a definite equivocation going on, perhaps more than just one time, as the professor said. The definitions matter here, and we're not giving that in this argumentation. But I would say a definite equivocation that also happens in premise 2 is that the universe is not a whatever or a thing. That's not a way that we could really classify the universe, is it? Finally, the conclusion, well, is one we have to be skeptical of and does not follow, since the premises do not lead to that conclusion. They're incoherent, they're unscientific, they're illogical, they're badly worded, and they just don't work. We don't have a coherent argument, that's for sure. But there's more problems that come with the Kalam, and I'll address those next time. Until then, thanks to Professor Stick for showing up in this video. If you like him, make sure to subscribe to his channel and comment on there how awesome I am. Also, be sure to be his Patreon, but be mine first, because I said it first and better. Here's a reason why you should be my Patreon, because I'm about to say some names. William McRenty, Robert Lester, Hector Defendi, Joseph Smith, Jacob Santos. All those people are Patreons. You could be one too and have your name read at the end of these credits thing of the whatever. Bye!